Trash.
What?
It's code. We're speaking in code, Basil. You and I.
What are you saying?
Trash, man.
Trash.
Talking about this app that we're about to talk about.
It's gotta be biblical.
Yeah, I don't know. This was very interesting. If you listened, if you listened to the Ravel episode with the Metaverse pastor, we actually mentioned this app at the end, and so we thought it was good to bring it up. This is coming from an outlet, a mainstream outlet that is loading.
Times.co.uk.
Yeah, you don't have to give away the surprise. It's times.co.good. And the headline is, How Christian App Glorify Persuaded Hollywood to Do God.
Hey, bro, you want to do God?
I want to do God,
yeah,
bro.
Man.
Come on. Now, admittedly,
do God.
Admittedly, there has been an increase in, like, godiness. I'm not going to say godliness, but godiness.
Yeah, good call.
You know, you got Kanye West, you got Justin Bieber, you've got all sorts of people sort of more open and willing to talk about it.
Timing-wise, it all started happening as we've seen this sort of weaponization of evangelicalism pattern or blueprints that they've used before and doing kind of the same thing again. This time, there's all sorts of different angles, but yeah, that's all part of it, I think.
Let's see what this is about. Ed Beckel and Henry Costa are the creators of a well-being app called Glorify, which is a bit like Headspace, only for Christians. Download it, create an account, and each time you open it on your phone, you can listen to a bite-sized Bible passages or guided meditation sessions inspired by hymns or encouraging homilies read by a smiling narrator to soothing music. One function lets you create digital prayers, which you can then send to people in your contacts.
Not a good idea, but okay. I mean,
all this,
I don't know.
All this content is strictly non-denominational. In theory, everyone from a Roman Catholic to a Seventh-day Adventist should be able to enjoy it equally, and it is free.
No, it's not. It's not free. It's not free.
Unless you want to unlock more meditations, more declarations, in which case the premium version costs £6.99 a month.
That's 666.
I don't know if I said that correctly, but yeah. Launched 2 years ago, Glorify has attracted more than 2.5 million users worldwide and is now on the verge of serious global success. It was recently valued at £188 million. In some ways, this is not very surprising. In Beckel, it has at the helm a highly gifted young tech savant, a 22-year-old who is developing apps as a teenager, skipping school and commuting to London from Oxford to pursue his grand Zuckerbergish ambitions. Costa, 34, by contrast, so close, is a balancing older head. He's an old head, Gons, like you, with experience in the world of business and finance. They are attracting major investment. In December, they raised £30 million. Some of this came from venture capital firms, including Andreessen Horowitz, an early investor in companies. Yeah, you know them. Yeah. The earlier investor in companies that would go on to become tech giants such as Facebook and Airbnb. Yeah, very famous capital firm, Andreessen.
Don't they got some investments in crypto stuff too, I believe. I don't remember
they're
which
all
ones,
over the place.
But yeah.
They're the techie guys. They're the techie firm.
VC.
Glorify has also won financial backing from James Corden, singers Michael Bublé and Jason Derulo, and Kardashians matriarch Kris Jenner, who all believe that Beckel and Costa have found a gap in the market for something that millions, maybe billions, of people desperately want. They desperately want this app, Gons. Desperately. In a world of superficial connection, fostered by social media, Glorify is offering something real and important. To many, the most important thing that there could possibly be. Quote, it's about being able to connect with God, says Costa, quote, and improve that connection on a daily basis. Pretty fancy app, man. The app.
I mean, if
connect you with God.
Well, I suppose we have this ability to connect with God better with these apps than thousands of years, at least hundreds.
Baby, you gotta gamify your relationship with the Lord.
Smartphone app to connect with God. But okay, all right.
Yeah. It goes into the story of these two guys, Costa and Beckel, which is an interesting story, but it's too much for this show. Basically, one of them was a Christian, the other one isn't, as far as I can tell. And they kind of talk about their skills and their conversations, and all our millennial people are doing the meditations and the this and the that, but there wasn't anything. They mentioned that yes, Christian apps like this do exist, but specifically they're too specific. Like they're denominationally specific, but also theologically specific.
Right. Yeah. And we've noticed just in general the sort of Christian brand of anything that's been sort of progressing in entertainment or with technology. It's always kind of janky and low budget, and it's never as clean and crisp as
rarely there. Yeah. And so that was their thinking. They said, first of all, it needs to be absolutely generalistic, right. Generally Christian. And I say absolute in like the definition of the term,
right? Like
it has an absolutist, general take on Christianity, and that is to make it scalable. Here's another interesting little part of what I saw. And this is what makes Glorify particularly interesting. Until very recently, blue chip Silicon Valley venture capital firms were not investing millions into Christian startups, which does beg the question, what is a Christian startup? But that's for another podcast. A-list celebrities were not evangelizing for them. In a short space of time, a cultural change has been taking place. Quote, we noticed it in the metadata and the microsignals, says Costa, quote, that things are shifting. A lot more people are willing to talk about their faith, and a lot more people are returning to a faith that they've grown up with. Yeah, it's called millennials being 40 years old now, but okay. And I love the metadata and the microsignals as if the two biggest celebrities in the entire world, Kanye West and Justin Bieber, being outspoken about their alleged Christianity.
Yeah. I wonder if that had anything to do with
some sort
metadata.
Of micro signal. How can we use the scrying orb of our AI micro signal detector to figure out what could
There's
possibly...
a shift in culture I'm sensing.
Kanye and Justin Bieber. Okay. The reasons for this apparent shift are varied and nuanced. They're nuanced, Gons. And while Beckel and Kostev will spend a good chunk of our time together analyzing them, for the time being, it probably helps to keep in mind that the planet has been through 2 years of a pandemic and all the death and uncertainty that have come with it. This, says Beckel, has prompted high levels of anxiety and sleeplessness, as well as, quote, a greater search for meaning that is inspiring people to look beyond wellness or mindfulness or something more.
For something more,
For something more, right. Then it goes into, how they were able to gather so much support in Hollywood. Yeah, you got a part you want to read?
Well, they talk about how, so the quote here from Beckles, he says, we're going to build, he says, something gigantic.
Yeah, the idea, the attitude, and you have to have this attitude to have a successful startup in Silicon Valley. So
of course, yeah.
I'll give it to them for that. But yeah, the attitude of like, this is gonna be the biggest app in the world is it's reflective of the most unfortunate parts of the church, and more specifically the American Evangelical Church, which is the idea that the bigger your church is, the more, whatever, the more the good you're doing for the Lord or whatever, which obviously is not a direct corollary. But it is an interesting way for them to look at this, their product.
Yeah, so here's a little bit more. Beckel began to do some research. It wasn't that Christians don't use social media, but rather the apps that were designed for them specifically were just not very good. Quote, they were poorly built, and the user experience didn't connect with people. Even when they found an innovative use of Christian technology, let's call it Christ tech.
Oh, I forgot about that part.
Christ tech.
Christ tech. Oh, that's what we should have named the show today. Christ tech.
Christ tech. It tended to be designed with a particular denomination in mind. It was too specific and thus not scalable, but then the pandemic happened. And yay, because now it makes it possible, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Those apps, the quote here, those apps are really well built and helpful to so many people. But it's just not the same level of depth and connection as something like Glorify.
Glorify.
It also helps, says Costa, that particularly in the U.S., there has been a trend towards. Yes, we know about all this. So, you got another point to make there?
Well, I was gonna go into generalities. But whenever you're done, we can get into a broader analysis.
Sure. I just there's an angle to this that I don't think is discussed in this particular article, which is the data collection side of things. Always something to kind of keep in mind in terms of what the end game is or what the usefulness is for. I don't know, the lizard people behind the scenes, I guess. And I want to bring your attention to this article by PC Mag, and the headline is Mozilla. This is May 2nd, so, a couple weeks old. Mozilla. These mental health prayer apps don't have your privacy in mind.
Right.
And it says, I'll just read the first couple paragraphs here that I have highlighted. Mozilla has updated its privacy not included buying guide with information about 32 apps related to mental health, and unfortunately, the findings are unlikely to bring anyone peace of mind. The update covers popular meditation apps like Calm, Headspace, and Breathe, Think, Do, with Sesame. I didn't know that was a meditation app, but okay. Therapy apps like BetterHelp, Talkspace, and Modern Health, and prayer apps like Pray.com, Glorify, and the King James Version Bible app offered by iDaily Bread. Mozilla applied the Privacy Not Included label to 28 apps in this category. The 4 exceptions are WISA, PTSD Coach, Headspace, and Glorify. Of those, only WISA and PTSD Coach received a thumbs up. Headspace received a neutral rating. Glorify, which counts Michael Bublé and Kris Jenner among its investors, by the way. I don't think that last article said that Michael Bublé was an investor, did it? It was just,
yeah.
Did they say that, or did they say it was just popularized by them? Okay, well, anyway. So Glorify, which counts Michael Bublé and Kris Jenner among its investors, received a thumbs down because of how it can use your information to serve up ads, though Mozilla stopped short of slapping the Privacy Not Included label on it. So
they got a particularly bad rating as far as the well-being apps are concerned.
Yeah, so Privacy Not Included.
That is a bad deal, man.
Yeah, this is the side of things that, I mean, if you really think about it, the timeline of the 2010s and the sort of the cultural development of social media skepticism and all that stuff, by creating this Christian app, it's almost like saying, hey, ignore all that concern, Christians. I mean, these Christians are dumb. They're not going to pay attention. They're not going to pay attention to all this stuff. They're not watching Netflix. They think it's all satanic stuff. So they're not going to see all the documentaries about how, we manipulate minds and emotions and brain chemistry through our applications. So just, hey, ripe, there's a big harvest of minds and data.
Well, what an effective you think about what the data mostly is used for, which is advertising. Yeah. And what is better than the piece of data that says this person has a very particular worldview? That is a very effective piece of data for advertising. That is dubious. I'm not a fan of that. That is I wasn't a big fan in the first place. And especially the way that they talk about scaling up and how they're going to have 1 billion people and it's going to be the biggest app in the world. And, we're helping people connect with God.
Right. That's the part like that this. Really, to me, is like, okay, assisting with organizing your Bible study or, helping with, there's all kinds of apps already out there. I think there's enough out there for Christians to be involved with some kind of thing. I mean, I have my Bible app and I have audio Bible stuff, and it's just
I've got my Extreme Teen Bible sitting right next to me here.
But there's not been a cultural phenomenon of that app based on celebrity culture and all that kind of stuff, and that's where it gets really concerning. As to like the accuracy of the data they collect is not going to accurately reflect perhaps all believers.
The evil part about this, and I said evil, I don't know, whatever. Maybe nefarious. Evil, maybe just nefarious, yeah. Is that they're so good at making a point that this is helping people connect with God.
Yeah.
It's helping people connect with advertisers, buddy. That's 100%. What it's doing. And, another way to see it is like, I guess advertisers are a type of God now on earth.
That's true.
And, a principality and a power. So, he's not exactly wrong. I kind of want to wrap it up with one of these paragraphs at the end here because it kind of says it all. Both men say they are surprised by a number of people who do not identify as Christian, but who nevertheless find themselves using the app every day. Quote, increasingly, people are opening themselves up to exploring this side of themselves, says Costa. I don't know what that means.
Exploring.
In the context of, they don't claim to be Christian, but they use my app, so they're opening themselves up to exploring this side of themselves. What side of themselves are you talking about? Christian? Either this side of themselves that you're talking about is like Christo-curious, maybe, or it's that your Christian app is so general that even non-Christians don't even notice what's happening.
There's a point in here that I wanted to make that I made on Twitter, but nobody pays attention to my Twitter. So, so there's a sentence in here about the Beckel and Costa already have 2.5 million users. There's about 2.5 billion Christians worldwide. The question now is how many more people, how many more souls can they attract? That's what's in the article. And it reminded me of the passage in Revelation 18 where it talks about how the merchants, the end times, they're not just through sorcery, they are making profit from the souls of men.
Right.
It's like, oh, okay, maybe this is part of it. Yeah, it makes sense because it's in the context of religious worship in Revelation 18 because, they're decorating the temple and doing all that kind of stuff. So
that's here.
Yep.
Yeah, continue.
No, that's it.
Oh, yeah. It says here, he and Beckel hint that the long-term plans for Glorify are grander and more ambitious than simply being a place where users can have some scripture read to them or send prayers to their friends.
Oh, my gosh.
What? Quote, the people who have invested in us saw a really big vision, something gigantic, and they were willing to back that, says Costa. Quote, remember, the people who invested in them are
Kris Jenner.
I don't know, a banquet of Hollywood celebrities.
You know what this is too? This is these celebrities seeing the tide turning, jumping off the Hollywood left crazy bandwagon to keep their business alive. It's got to be, right?
That's
because that woke thing is dying. The woke left thing is not working in Hollywood. I mean, it has killed Hollywood, basically. So. Yeah. I can see them doing financial reasons for this more so than anything from these celebrity types.
Oh, totally. Well, and the financial thing, that's the signal. That is the signal. is that that where the capital goes is where the culture follows. Quote, "We're very aware of the scale of what we can do, and this is the exciting bit. There's a crisis of faith in many countries, and it's spreading. We are we are reacting to that crisis and breaking down the barriers to provide more access points for people to be able to connect with God." What on God's green earth are you talking about, Costa? He's saying he's going to their app is going to single-handedly solve the crisis of faith that is spreading across the globe by making it an app that you can connect with God.
People and
now,
God.
Costa,
I could create the great Christian hive mind.
It is just the most bizarre article about this app. And part of me wants to get the app and look at it and see and experience exactly what is wrong with it. But noting the privacy concerns, there's no way that I'm going to do that. But it just speaks to this really sad thing, where, yes, there is a crisis of faith. Yes, people are turned off by going to a church. So even if they are interested in Christianity, they might not want to go to a church. And this is part of the conversation that I had on Ravel with the Metaverse pastor, which is like, I get it that people don't want to go to a church and they'd much rather go on an app, or they'd rather go in the Metaverse, and maybe they have no other opportunities. But there's something about the instantaneous gratification of thinking you've connected with God because you've opened up an app or you played a video game, that sure, it is nice and heartwarming, sort of evangelistic story, like way to think about it. Like, oh, we're giving people an easier time to hear the Bible or whatever. But the chances that will create a transformative experience in someone's life, it just matches up with every single thing that is wrong with the world today, that people don't realize that just because there's an app for something doesn't mean that it's going to give you whatever connection you're looking for, whether that's friendship and Facebook, whether that's, whatever, the whole disease that our society is suffering from, the instant gratification, translating that over into a religious experience or a spiritual pursuit through an app that'll play you vague Christian sounding words or whatever, is just depressing to me. And look, that might have some sort of weird Christian elitist vibe to it. But, not saying this app is going to send anybody to hell, but I'm also not saying that it's going to send anybody to heaven necessarily either. It's just it's in the spirit of the spiritual, not religious movement, I guess.
The other part of this that we haven't really talked about is the intelligence operation potential behind this.
Absolutely.
Influence. Yeah. And
yep.
I'm looking at Ed Beckel. He's the guy behind Glorify, the young guy, and his Twitter page here. And he's got 248 followers.
That's weird.
Yeah. Very low count. I mean, this is, co-founder Glorify app. Following 458, only 248 followers.
Try to follow him. Does it is it like protected? Is it a protected account? Is it?
Yeah, I'm following. It works.
Yeah, okay. You didn't need to be
no, I don't have to be
approved person, or whatever.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, that is weird. I don't know, man. That is weird. That is really
just
weird.
Kind of thinking about the blueprint that we saw with someone like Zuckerberg, young guy, kind of smart, oddball, and using that, using his personality, whatever, to sort of spur forward a social media platform. This could be very similar in nature.
I mean,
with
even
this.
even comparing it to Zuckerberg and Facebook, like on one side, you're like, yes, it will be very popular and he will make lots of money. But that's pretty much it, because what else do you think of with Zuckerberg? Horrible, evil, inhuman lizard person who doesn't know what humans like and is caught in the middle of a societal travesty that is Facebook, and quite possibly single-handedly started the sort of end of society.
Well, if there was actually an organic thing with this guy, and I don't know who this guy is, he's just a guy that has allegedly co-founded this Glorify app. If millions of people are already using it and they're talking, we're going to reach billions, you'd think maybe there's a little bit more organic, support or visibility of this guy. I mean, maybe we're at the very beginning. It's just the introduction of the guy, and the app
came out in January 2020, by the way.
Okay, so
still weird though. I mean, 2.5 million user. I don't know. Maybe he's just not a very public guy. I don't know. Anyways, there you go. It's just something weird, and it concerns me a bit. But we'll see. Honestly, I don't think much is going to come of it.
Sure,
but that's just me. I think this Times article was a bit of a paid for advertising thing, but we'll see.